Chapter 16. Reproduction of Social Capital. Social capital. Composition of the aggregate social product. Capitalist reproduction involves both production and circulation. Capital must complete a cycle from money to production to commodities and back to money for reproduction to occur. Social capital is interconnected. Individual capitals are independent yet linked, forming a complex web of interdependence. This interdependence arises spontaneously due to the unplanned nature of capitalist production. Reproduction requires circulation. The social product must be realized, meaning it must be exchanged for money, which is then used to purchase inputs for further production. The social product has three parts: constant capital, replaced inputs; variable capital, wages; and surplus value, profit. Social production has two subdivisions: production of means of production, I, and production of consumer goods, 2. Consumer goods are further divided into necessities and luxuries. The material form of the product matters. For reproduction to continue, the correct balance of means of production and consumer goods must be produced. Realization is key. Each part of the social product must find a buyer in the market for the cycle to continue. Extended reproduction adds complexity. Extended reproduction requires understanding how surplus value is transformed into capital to finance increased production. Conditions for realization in capitalist simple reproduction. 2 subdivisions. Subdivision I. Produces means of production, e.g. machinery, raw materials. Constant capital, C4000 variable capital, V1000 surplus value, S1000 total value. 6000 Subdivision 2. Produces consumer goods, e.g. food, clothing. Constant capital, C2000 variable capital, V500 surplus value, S500 total value. 3000 Exchange and realization. Subdivision I sells 4000 worth of means of production to itself to replace its own constant capital. Subdivision I sells the remaining 2000, 1000 V plus 1000s, to Subdivision 2 in exchange for consumer goods for its workers and capitalists. Subdivision 2 sells 2000 worth of consumer goods to Subdivision I to cover the wages and surplus value of I's workers and capitalists. This also renews 2's constant capital. Subdivision 2 sells the remaining 1500 V plus 500s worth of consumer goods to its own workers and capitalists. Key condition for simple reproduction. The exchange between the subdivisions highlights a crucial balance. IV plus S equals 2C. This means the value of variable capital plus surplus value in Subdivision I, demand for consumer goods, must equal the value of constant capital in Subdivision 2, demand for means of production. In simpler terms, everything produced in Subdivision I, means of production, must be consumed by both subdivisions combined. Everything produced in Subdivision 2, consumer goods, must equal the total income of workers and capitalists in both subdivisions. This example demonstrates how, in simple reproduction, the different parts of the social product must find a market to ensure the continuation of the production process. Any imbalance can lead to disruptions in the cycle. Conditions for realization in capitalist extended reproduction. Unlike simple reproduction, extended reproduction requires that IV plus S. 2C. This means the combined value of variable capital and surplus value in Subdivision I, demand for consumer goods and means of production for expansion, must exceed the value of constant capital in Subdivision 2, demand for means of production. This surplus allows for reinvestment and growth. Example, Subdivision I, 4000C plus 1000V plus 1000S is equal to 6000. Subdivision 2, 1500C plus 750V plus 750S is equal to 3000. Assuming Subdivision I accumulates 500 of its surplus value. 400 goes to increase constant capital, bought from within Subdivision I. 100 goes to increase variable capital, requires exchange with Subdivision 2. To facilitate this, Subdivision 2 also accumulates 100 of its surplus value is exchanged with I for means of production, increasing IIC. 50 of its surplus value goes to increase variable capital, based on the organic composition of capital in 2. Condition for realization in extended reproduction. For the exchange to work, the following equation must hold. IV plus S consumed plus S added to V equals 2, C plus S added to C. This ensures that the demand for consumer goods and additional means of production from Subdivision I is met by the supply from Subdivision 2. Uneven growth. In extended reproduction, subdivision I, means of production, grows faster than subdivision II, consumer goods. This reflects the increasing share of social labor devoted to producing means of production. Organic composition of capital. Extended reproduction is linked to a rising organic composition of capital, more constant capital relative to variable capital. This leads to increased productivity, but can also result in unemployment and a lower standard of living for the working class. Lenin's contribution. Lenin further developed Marx's theory by accounting for the changing organic composition of capital in his diagram of extended reproduction. This highlighted the uneven development inherent in capitalist growth, with the production of means of production outpacing the production of consumer goods. The problem of the market, contradictions of capitalist reproduction proportions and disruptions. Necessary balance. Realizing the social product, selling all goods produced, requires a delicate balance between different sectors of the economy, means of production versus consumer goods. Anarchy of production. Under capitalism, individual producers make decisions based on profit motives, without knowledge of overall market demand. This leads to constant imbalances and disruptions in the required proportions. Violation of proportions. As production expands, the established balance is continuously disrupted, leading to overproduction in some sectors and shortages in others. This instability is a defining feature of capitalism. Production and consumption. Focus on means of production. Capitalist expansion prioritizes the production of means of production for further expansion over consumer goods. Limited consumption. The purchasing power of the masses is restricted due to low wages and exploitation, limiting the market for consumer goods. Contradiction. This creates a fundamental contradiction. Production expands while mass consumption lags behind, leading to potential overproduction and crises. The driving force, profit motive. The core objective of capitalist production is maximizing profit, leading to relentless expansion. Production for production's sake. Marx's concept of production for the sake of production highlights this drive, where production becomes an end in itself rather than a means to satisfy human needs. Antagonistic contradiction. This creates a deep contradiction between production and consumption, with social wealth increasing alongside mass poverty. Internal and external markets. Internal market develops with the growth of capitalism and the division of labor, providing an outlet for both means of production and consumer goods. External market. While not essential for understanding the core dynamics of reproduction, foreign trade offers capitalists opportunities for higher profits and expands markets. Crises. The contradictions of capitalist realization ultimately manifest in periodic economic crises of overproduction, where goods cannot be sold, leading to economic downturns. Lenin's emphasis, inevitability of contradictions. Even under ideal conditions, the restricted consumption of the masses creates a contradiction with expanding production. Real-world difficulties. In reality, the unplanned nature of capitalism exacerbates these contradictions, leading to fluctuations, crises, and instability.